Finally arrived a few days ago, Dark Visions, which is a Shadowdark expansion that looks specifically at cults that I backed on Kickstarter a while back. It's one of those Kickstarters that's actually arrived, I want to say probably 2 or 3 months early, which is really pleasing. So let's just show you the Kickstarter project. So here we have the Kickstarter project, Dark Visions for Shadowdark. So the project itself was for this book here, Dark Visions, and the Tower of Six. Between them, the two books will make three adventures in here. Okay, so the Dark Vision's the one I'm looking at, but I just wanted to get this out so I've gone through the book and it's sort of fresh in my mind. It's created here by Jeffrey Jones and written by Zach Goins. Did about $36,000 on Kickstarter, and it was due out about Q3 of this year. So I'm really impressed. It's not often I get to do this with a Kickstarter book because it's normally a little bit after. So I just backed on PDFs, and I will go off to Lulu and get physical copies of this printed because it's a good book. Well, I don't know why I spoil my reviews, but then yeah, I think you've probably known by now that if I'm doing something quite quickly that I've enjoyed, there's a good chance I've enjoyed it to put the camera on. Okay, so just the only bit I'm on Kickstarter is because I did a Kickstarter instant backing when I looked at it, and they actually shared it on there, which is really nice. So thank you, Jeff, for sharing that. So let's just get over and look at the book itself. So here we have the front cover for Dark Visions. So there is the second book, Tower of the Six, which I will look at, and that will come up in a follow-up video here. So here we've got Dark Visions. It's an 88-page book, and it is just cults. If you like cults, you're going to want this book in your collection, okay? Written by Zach Goins, I think that's how you pronounce. I'm hoping it is Zach. And created by Jeffrey Jones. Got the table of contents here, which nicely, just imagine the start of a book, it just breaks down. So we've got 3 new character classes here. Then details on the cults, some gear, deities, magic. There's I think it's 25 new spells. And then a breakdown of, I think it's 15 new cults. And the cults will be broken down into like cult leaders, special magic items, rumors and things. And then we've got 2 adventures at the end that will then lead into the 3rd adventure, which is a separate book. Okay, first class we've got here is the Cultist class. So these are zealots inherent to the patrons or deity who remove them from society due to taboos, dark deeds, and secretive rituals. They come with crossbow, daggers, short sword, and cultist weapons, no armor, a d6, and variety of languages. And 3 times a day, when they deal damage to an enemy, they can take some additional hit points damage themselves to do extra damage to whoever they're attacking. And they are full spellcasters, so they're going to get up to up to the 5th tier of spells, and they're going to be casting spells off their charisma modifier, which you'd imagine is, cult sort of followers tend to be quite charismatic to get more people into the cult. So I like the fact it is linked in then with their charisma. We'll come on to the spells a little bit later. I was a little bit, no titles. I like titles. So we then got the Inquisitor class, and you can see from the artwork here, these are sort of religious zealot people that go out and then hunt cultists. So you're going to have to be a non-evil alignment to pick this one up. You're going to get all melee weapons and crossbows. You're going to get leather armor and chainmail, d6, and you're going to know, again, a few languages. You're going to choose a god to start with, and there are some gods listed in this book. And then you're going to pick an enemy, being goblin, draconic, undead, that opposes your god, okay? And you're going to gain an advantage on checks related to tracking or researching for that enemy. Tools of Faith, you can activate spell scrolls and wands using your intelligence to cast from the stat. And the final other power you get is Judgment, which you're going to be using your will stat to do. Mark of the Hellfire, so one target near is illuminated, shedding light in a close distance for a d4 rounds. If they happen to be chaotic, aligned, it also gives them disadvantage on their next attack. However, if they turn out to be the same alignment as you, so obviously that's going to be a non-evil alignment, they are illuminated for the duration, shedding light into the distance. And then finally, we've got this Covenant Knight, which really sort of seems a bit Templar, sort of Paladin. So you're going to be lawful, all melee weapons, you get all armor, all shields, hence the reason it feels a little bit Paladin to me. Final word, when you hit an enemy with a weapon attack, you may choose to deal maximum damage, but you can only do this a number of times a day equal to half of your level rounded down. So at first level, you're not going to be able to do that. So that will kick in at second level. And you're going to have advantage on checks made to resist the abilities of devils and demons. And you are a spellcaster, however, you're only going to get up to tier 3 spells here once you get up to 9th level. Okay, so they're not like a full caster. Right, so like I said about the titles then are over on the last page, which I was quite pleased they were there, because I was like, oh, I like having titles and random titles in for classes. Don't know why they're not on the page. Well, I suppose it's because this does look good with the artwork in, so they probably just couldn't fit it in. And I think I'd rather have these nice images in here than the titles being, so it's only 3 classes, so they're put there. As you'd imagine, all cultists now have got a new random background. And you can, if the players specifically want something, you can let them pick or randomly roll it, which is probably the way I would do it. Some new gear as well, so fetters and manacles, so for sort of binding hands and feet. They've got horns to make noise, hourglasses, vestments, so the clothes, the religious garments that are going to give you advantage on charisma checks when dealing with other people. So the book has got gods and demigods in, and these just details a little bit about the gods and the type of people that are going to worship them. Because when we get to the cults, what you will be doing when you create the cult is you will give the cult a deity, a god, or a demigod that just adds a little bit of a twist to what the cult is, or what they sort of stand for, or the god that has sort of manipulated them into doing their cult-like ways. But before we get into that, we've got a couple of mishap tables here for tiers 1 to 3 and 4 to 5 for the cultists, and then the spell list for the cultists here as well. So it's quite a big spell list, but we have got 25 new spells. The downside is you are going to need Curse Scroll 1 for some of the spells. Obviously, if you haven't got Curse Scrolls 1, obviously you're going to have the core rulebook, then you might want to speak to the games master and you might need to substitute some. Okay, we're then looking at the spells themselves, which range in, so these are the new spells. I think I said it's 25, so it's 6 pages across. There's a lot of lightning in here. So we've got Lightning Strike, Fabricate Lightning, which this is a nasty one. You've got to be, it's tier 5, but it's doing a 66 damage in an area, so not just for one place. And then you can move that lightning ball around to different areas, but you're going to include, the stuff that you'd expect, like Bane and Boiling Blood as well. Mind linking, possessing people, and then finally we got things like Summon Circle and Summon an Imp to help you. Cultists now. Before we just get into the cult, so I'll just scroll over the one page in the cult. So you've got the list here of the gods and the domains, and so this just will give you a little bit about the type of god or cult. Well, it's the sort of things that the cults are then going to go and do, and in a way that they will act and behave, if that makes sense. Okay, and each of them, the cults, will be a 2-page spread, and they were all like this throughout the rest of the book. So all the way through into things like nightmares, and let's pick on one. Let's just go with dragon. Okay, so they will all have this. They'll have a little bit of detail about the cult themselves. So a few sects are as ancient as the dragon cultists. Their cult formed after a humanoid sighted the first ever dragon. It will then give you some creatures. So they tend to be kobolds and dragons, and they tend to have ferocious leaders. whose writs are filled with demand for immense tribute and absolute authority. Okay, so as you go through all the different ones in here, they will all have these sort of things, which go and read them at your own pleasure, obviously, when you pick up the book. But let's just get back to the dragon one. And the dragon one's a bad example, actually, because over here, where you've got, so there's only a cult leader on this one, but okay, let's just go to Gallows. So Gallows they'll normally have a normal cultist, and then you get a leader as well, okay, over on the right hand page. Apart from the Grave, who's obviously got this wonderful lich here. Moon gives a werewolf. Okay, not all of them. I thought most of when I was flicking through. No, okay, yeah. So some of them have two, some only have one. Okay, anyway, let's just get back to the dragon. They will also have specific magic items or dust or something that is specific to that cult. There will also be rumors. So when the players are trying to find out that cult is the cult doing things, you will roll on this, and so the random table will just give a something that's going on that will make the players think there is a cult nearby. For example, let's have a look at Rumour 4. The face of the moon shifted, looking more and more like a dragon each night. So that should imply to the players that there's something sinister going on related to a dragon. We've then got a default of random encounters, and finally for each one you've got a plot generator and a logo that you would see etched or drawn, scratched into places wherever it may be. The plot generators run the same across for each of the cults, so they'll have some sort of motive, what they're trying to achieve, how they're then going to do it through the method, the final goal, and then a complication. Okay, and so this is all of them are it's similar in the layout, if that makes sense, but they are just completely different. And yeah, so things like the moon, cause I'm a big werewolf fan, so the moon one does sort of resonate with me, having that werewolf leader. The nightmares is very much related to the adventures that are coming up, and then that really is it. Until we get into the adventures. Okay, so it's 15 different cults with different leaders in there, say different plot generations, encounters, rumors, just of a way to put it in. And for each of these cults, we'll just scroll back just as a reminder here. You will then pick one of the demigods or gods to go with a cult. So we might have a Monkar, and so this cult, so the Doom cult possesses tomes with people appointed with death. Grave cults believe undead is the second life gift, and symmetry cults deny civilizations any rights to stave off death. Okay, so they'll follow that god, that demigod, and then they might be of the beast. Okay, so within the cult themselves, then you're mainly going to have things like bears, druids, and minotaurs, and mastiffs and stuff. So it's the players over time will then work out things that are going on because the cults will attract certain types of races and species. Okay, the adventure then, so there's 2 adventures at the back of the book, which then jump in once you complete them to the Tower of the Six. They don't need to be done back to back either, so you can just run in the Cultist Wake, which is the first part, and then you can go on to As Above, So Below at a later date, which is sort of detailed over here. Okay, this 2 adventures are, so we've got Leviathan's Cult of Nightmares. So there's your god or demigod. So we've got Leviathan, and then the Cult of the Nightmares. So it should give you an idea of the motivations behind what the god is expecting, as well as what the Cult of Nightmares do. But if you don't want that cult, it does have a section here down on the right hand side where you can take out that cult and bring in the Grave Cultists, the Plague Carriers, or the cult of Bellephone Beastmen, okay, and their Mastiffs. So it will just make it a little bit more interesting for you as a games master, because if you're going to rerun this, if you're going to run this multiple times, it means you can easily just sort of take one cult out and bring another one in. The first one is it's a single dungeon location. Well, actually, they're both pretty much single dungeon locations. And as you'd expect, from stopping a cult. You are going somewhere to, well, they're already there, sort of dealing with trying to get the item that's actually in there. This is quite a decent sort of twist on it, because the darker bits here are submerged in water, so they've got a little bit of, not trapped, so to speak, but they've got to sort of to deal with a way of trying to work out how to drain it, because if they don't drain it properly, they can't actually get to some of it, but also they're going to miss some of the hints and clues. The other thing I do like in this, and both the adventures, and I don't think I've ever seen this before, so you've got the main map on the left hand side, and then as you get into sort of like room 1 and 2, you've then got a sort of smaller section, but closed in of the map. So it means that, because normally when you're running a map in a book, you're backwards and forwards, or you have to photocopy the map, or however you're going to get it out. There are 6 maps actually included in this, so you've got 3 maps for players and games masters of both of the adventure places. And then once that's done, you can do as above, so below, and then say this can just be done at a later date. It did say earlier back that you can sort of do 2 or 3 different things and then bring it in. On the right hand side of the page down the bottom here, it details in, and I like this because it gives you, so there are other thieves and cultists around, and it actually gives them the name, so you don't have to sort of think about it, because sometimes as a games master, and if you've got a group like mine that, you know, they like to ask names, and it can be quite difficult to try and think of things off the top of your head. Again, you've got the alternative cults that you can swap in and out. This is a slightly larger location, so this is going to take a little bit longer for the players. I think probably 2 to 3 sessions, maybe, depending on how well and how quick the players are. But each section of the book, again, it's all got this closed in, this sort of close-up view here, and we've got the pop-out boxes, which just a little bit more detail on what to do and how the players are going to sort of deal with everything. And then finally they will get into the secret temple at the end and deal with the sort of crypts and stuff that are going on in here. And finally, you've got the ley line shafts here, which they will actually realize is why the cultists are there, because they are drawing additional power. So the cult basically went here to find something, and they found additional stuff, and they are now taking additional like special sort of magic power because of the ley lines there as well. So there's a lot of NPCs in this one, and it's not too difficult, I don't think, because, say, as a games master, you've got the list of names in here, which should help you sort of cross people off, and it just sort of tell you exactly how many numbers of people are going to be in the different locations as well. So as they're dying, just cross them off your list as you go through. Okay, so that's my look at Dark Visions. Do I like it? Well, you know I like it because I put the camera on. I like cults because I'm a big Cthulhu fan, and it's I think it's about I think it was 2 on my list called Cthulhu, and it's what I like is the fact it's well, obviously Shadowdark does have the cult stuff in the main rule book, but this just really expands on it. It's giving you more cults. There are a lot more sort of leaders, sort of big bads in the cults, and I love the way it sort of goes. You know, like I was shown with some of the cults, this is a cult, this is what the cult does, and these are the creatures or the classes of people that are going to be around the cults. There's some specific magic items. You've got the stats for the cult leaders, and then some of the cults sort of underlings and things as well. And the rumors are really good because it just ties you back as the player to finding the cult out. The adventure is good. So the first one's a nice little teaser. The second one is slightly longer. So I will come back and I will go through the third adventure once I've read it. So that the Tower of Six, which then will just take these books into a 3-part adventure. So the only downside is I don't know when this is going to be available at full retail. I'm imagining it will be on Drive-Thru RPG at some stage. When I do notice it's there, or if Jeffrey sort of comments on the video and goes, it's going to be available X, obviously what I'll do is I'll do a sort of follow up, and I'll put it on my socials as well that it's actually available. Okay. So if you like cults, go and get this when you can. If hopefully go and get this when you can, when it does hit full retail, and I'm guessing TTRPG is probably where it will be. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.